Welcome back to the Cinema Condition. I'm your host, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. I'm a filmmaker and I am the creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network. That is the network that hosts this show. And of course, it has been a long while, my friends, and I didn't think that I'd get the chance to do an episode, but when stuff stops like getting off your back and once you start taking stuff off your shoulders, you have time coming up. So I'm not even sure when our last episode was or what, like where I was in our last episode, because I'm not sure if during our last episode if I had graduated yet or if I had a job, but a lot of things have changed. But of course, today we are looking at Xavier Dolan's 2014 film Mommy with none other than our wonderful guest, the host of Chew on This, and just all around renowned cinephile and lover of film. That is none other than Michael Chu.
What is up, guys? Thanks for having me, Roll. It's been a minute since we've spoken last. It was good to catch up with you a little bit before we start. I'm hyped to talk about this movie. It's one of my all-time favorites ever. So good.
Oh man, we're gonna have a lot to talk about this movie,
Oh, yeah.
man. But yeah, it's been a while, bro. I've been in what's it called, like between like full grind, but also just like
Sure, yeah.
trying to give myself the break I deserve. But at the same time, I'm not really taking a break, and it's all been wild, y'all. It's
Mhm.
just I'm very, very, very um tired as of late, and I am happy to be able to find time to do this though. So last time that I did this show, I barely was got employed. So yes, I haven't been here in a while, my friends. I guess a little update for y'all who are listening to this. If you never what's it called listen to this, but um, since then I finished my film. I finished editing my film and I got employed, and I covered my first film festival, and I'm going to be covering my second film festival in next week. On this week, I'm flying out to Houston for Houston Cinema Arts Houston Cinema Arts Festival, and I'm going to be covering that. But Mikey, for those
Yo.
who may not know who you are, brother, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, I want to say congrats to you, dude, because making a movie is no small feat, and you're doing it, man. So congratulations. Congratulations on school. Right now, I'm coming back on YouTube. I do a show that Raul mentioned, Chew on This, where I bring on creators, mostly content creators, some people that are just collectors, some people that are just friends, just to talk about themselves and talk about primarily what got them into film. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
slowly realizing as like we're getting back to the return that I kind of want to broaden that out a little bit and just get to know people, get to know stories. And I think that's something that I loved about our episode is that we got to know so much about your story and your family's story. And that's, I think, what the heart of the show should be and what the heart of the show is, I guess, in formation, like what people are enjoying. So, yeah, man,
Mm-hmm.
can't wait to get back to it. Can't wait to have you back on. And we'll definitely be talking movies regardless, but
Oh fuck
it's been a
yeah,
good time, man.
yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to see you, man. Mikey's a really good friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's
Thank you,
somebody
brother.
who
And
helped us
likewise.
tremendously with Before I Leave's funding, and because of that, he's gonna be able to see the film. Actually, not next week, in 2 weeks,
Hell
hopefully,
yeah,
two
man.
weeks.
I can't wait. It's gonna
But
be exciting.
yeah, man, I know it's been a while, but like I said, I've been out here just doing so much stuff, man. But I'm glad that we were able to do this because this was
Hell
actually
yeah.
supposed to be the next episode, but like there was a couple times that two times that we tried to do it, things got a little bit what's it called fell through because I just been busy as all hell, and I didn't get the chance to watch the film. I actually had like all my notes already written for this, like the introduction and stuff, and the notes
Oh,
on the
nice.
filmmaker. So
Mhm.
that I had that already done, but yeah, I finally was able to watch it, and I told Mikey like, "Hey man, we can do this. Like, this is the next one. I'm trying to do at least 2 episodes this month. I'm trying to what's it called, record 2 episodes. So I think I'm gonna be good to go. I think I'll be able to get another one in soon. But
Dope.
yeah, man, I've just been super busy. But how have you been, bro? Today, what's going on?
Ooh, today, not much, man. Just got some breakfast and lunch, worked out a little bit, and went over my notes for this episode one more time. I'm excited. I'm going to go see the beta tests in a couple hours
Yeah.
after we're done here. But yeah, it's been a good weekend. A good weekend for film lovers. If you are going to the theater, you're probably seeing something good this weekend. So
Yeah. I was really bummed that at Nashville, I wasn't able to get the screener for beta test, man.
damn, yeah, man. I've heard nothing but I love Jim Cummings. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this one too. I've heard it's his best,
Yeah.
so I cannot
I
wait.
might have to what's it called, tweet him to tell him to send it to MFAH while I'm out there
Yeah,
next week.
man. Give
But
that extra little show.
I loved Thunder Road. Thunder Road was incredible, and I
Yeah,
haven't seen anything else from him, but Thunder Road is beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Man.
funny. I'm the opposite. See, I haven't seen Thunder Road, but I've seen Wolf of Snow Hollow. And I
Okay.
absolutely loved that movie. It was one of my favorites of last year. So I can't wait to see Thunder Road. Can't wait to see the beta test. And even his little appearance in Halloween Kills was a welcome surprise. It was great.
Oh, God. We're not going to talk about Halloween Kills here. I'm not going to talk about Halloween Kills here. But it's been a busy day for me today. This is gonna be my second show of the day, and I'm gonna have to do another one later tonight as we do live show. But just been hanging out here. Yesterday I went to go see Eternals. I saw Eternals yesterday in theaters.
Hell yeah, dude! I saw that on Friday. What'd you think of it?
Oh, I loved it, man. I loved
Same.
it. Yeah. But Zhao is just, he's a great director, man.
Absolutely. I mean, it just completely was not what I was expecting at all. And that was the best part of it. I don't know how it'll hold up on a rewatch. I'm gonna rewatch it again this week, but damn, for a first watch, it was awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait for it to hit Disney Plus, but yeah, I'm hoping, crossing my fingers that next week. I mean, because this is like already Sunday. We're already going into the week.
Brand new week, man.
Yeah. I hope that this week I get to watch Spencer when I'm out there in Houston.
Oh my goodness.
That one has been on the radar for too long right now, bro.
Dude. Especially after you had seen Emma, I gave it a watch as well, and that I feel like amped up my anticipation for Spencer even more. Even though I didn't love the movie, I loved so much of the direction and just how subtle a lot of like characters, like eye movements were. Just the very small things, and I'm imagining that with this story, and just I can't wait to see it. It's gonna be mind blowing for sure.
I'm so excited, man. But I'm glad that we were able to get you here, man. This is your first ever appearance on the Cinema Condition, man.
Yeah, dude, it is. And it's for a movie that I feel like is worthy of an extremely great episode that I hope we deliver today. It's going to be so sick.
Hell yeah, bro. Yeah, I have never seen this film, y'all. And we have never talked about this filmmaker. So, of course, I've been out for a while, but don't think I forgot how I do my shows here, man. Of course. I know how to do my shows. So let's go ahead and introduce you all to the filmmaker known as Xavier Dolan. So Xavier Dolan is a Canadian filmmaker born on March 20th, 1989. He was a child actor in commercials before he started to direct art house films. He received international acclaim with his 2009 partially autobiographical film, I Killed My Mother, that won 3 awards from Directors Fortnight at the Cannes Film Festival. Since 2009, he directed 8 films along with Adele's music video for Hello. Even though he does not have a particular inspiration for his style, he is a huge fan of the films of Michael Haneke. We know who that is for sure.
Love him. Another great director. One of the best.
100%. And a lot of his films tend to deal with mother and son relationships. So, of course, I had never heard of Xavier Dolan, but I had a friend actually before I had actually watched this film. We were talking. She was like, "Oh, like I had gone through this like big phase in my life where I watched purely like French Canadian films."
Oh wow!
And I was like, "Huh?" And she's like, "There's this one director that he's so good." And she's like, "It's like I can't remember." He's like, and I was like, I only French Canadian I know is Denis. That's it.
Oh yeah.
It's called only Denis. And I was like, is it Xavier Dolan? And then she goes, yes. I was like, oh, it's like she goes, I've seen a lot of his movies. They're really, really good movies. And I was like, oh well, I have to do an episode of my podcast about him, and we're gonna be talking about one of his movies. And she was like that. She had said that this one was really good, and she's like, she really liked this one. She said it was like really up my alley for sure. But Yeah, I had never seen this film, and of course, we do not discriminate against first watches here, my friends. We what's it called? We don't do we definitely do first watches. I've done a lot of first watches before on this podcast, so I think that makes the conversation a lot more fun too. That we're able to like to so that way you have somebody who's rewatches like multiple times versus me who's only seen it once, and I can bring in my view of the film and what I think the film is trying
Mhm.
to say. But I'm really excited to do this. So let me go ahead and introduce you all to Xavier Dolan's Mommy. So the inspiration behind this film comes from the director's real life discovery of Antoine Olivier Pilon and the music of Ludovico Finali. Finali. The film is shot on a 1:1 aspect ratio. It won the jury prize at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival along with the Canadian Screen Awards. Ooh. And that's honestly all I've got here for information on this film. Of course, the film has to do the plot of the film is basically uh, in the future, well not distant future. It's supposed to be like 2019 or 2018
Yeah,
something like that.
they say that in like the opening title card. I think it's like 2016 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2016 a law passes in Canada that basically allows you know families with financial distress or just families with children who are um, psychologically impossible to like take care of, something like that from what I gathered.
Mhm.
Basically, if the family does not want to take care of them anymore, the mother has the right to hospitalize them, which would basically be institutionalizing them into an institution, mental institution. And throughout our film, we follow the journey of a mother and a son with violent tendencies because of his ADHD and his after he gets out of jail from uh, from an incident, and we follow this journey of them two and trying to amend their broken relationship, but also create a safe relationship for themselves as they try to stay together for the sake of having a family. But uh, things come to a very 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 depressing halt sometimes, and our journey is filled with bumps in the road and a lot of learning curves, and that is Mommy. uh, Michael, I never seen like I never seen Mommy.
Mhm.
So, usually this show is not concerned whether I like a movie or not, but there are instances when I watch a movie that I am floored by and I'm in love with and just incredible that I honestly give my opinions on the film. And I want to tell you, bro, this was incredible. I mean, start to
Yeah,
finish,
I'm so happy you loved it.
beautiful movie. There At first I was like, oh, like this seems to be taking a certain approach. I'm like, I don't know what we're going for here, and I think that we might stay at this like certain type of like beat to the story.
Mhm.
But like the more we progress and the more that we learn more about these characters, and the more that we see the cinematic language of Xavier Dolan being presented, I just fell in love with the movie more and more. And of course, it reaches its beautiful like incredible climax, and we keep going, and this movie just never stops, man. It never fucking stops.
It doesn't. It really does. I think that's the best way to say it. Like you don't realize how encapsulated you are into the story and the characters until like real shit starts happening. Because for a lot of the time, it's just
Mhm.
like you don't really know what the plot of this is. I'm just kind of it's like you're just watching days in the lives of these people for a good portion of it.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's the way it sneaks up on you that is kind of resembles life in a way as well, where it's just like the most unexpected good and bad things happen when you least expect it. You know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
the movie captures a lot of things in a unique way, in a way that is so like it has its own language when you're
Mhm.
talking about the way they show love or freedom in this movie. I feel like it's truly like one of a kind, and it's yeah, dude. I'm so happy you loved it. It's one of my favorites. Like I said, it's great.
Yeah. Um, and I was gonna before we actually go into like the topics that I have here that I like, the pinpoints of things that I want to bring up about the film and what we're gonna try to say. I was really interesting when I was doing my research to see that he was influenced by Michael Haneke. And I was gonna ask you, like, as a repeated viewer, is there a little bit of those beats of Michael Haneke in this film? Because on a first watch, I definitely wasn't able to pick that up because I'm too concentrated on like story and everything. But like, did you see anything that kind of resembled anything that kind of reminded you of Michael Haneke?
See, I don't feel too strongly about that either. I don't see a lot there that resembles like one-to-one in Filmmaker, one-to-one in themes. But I will say that in the same way that Haneke does like really chooses to take his time and just show
Oh
like
yeah.
uncomfortable bits for like let's just say a scene could literally be like 30 seconds in a cut. He'll just keep it on for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, just to really let it sink in, and it provides like this uncomfortable unease to you.
Yeah.
And this movie does that in different scenes and in different ways. It's not really disturbing in that way, but the scene that comes to mind is like Steve like running around with the shopping cart. It's like it plays out like that whole song. Like it's probably like
Oh
two and a
yeah.
half or 3 minutes, and you
There
kind of
are
just watch.
multiple
Yeah,
occasions where the whole
and
song plays in this
even like
film.
that White Flag intro by Dido, like that they play that whole song out. But more so in that scene with the shopping cart, it's almost like you're just watching him just behave. Like that is simply it. Like you're not watching like any type of story development necessarily, or any type of relationship forwarding, or that you're noticing. It's just really just like you're watching Steve just like by himself and what he's doing. And I think in that way, in terms of how intentional it like Dolan takes his time with certain things, in that sense, I feel the Haneke like comparison there. But in terms of the filmmaking, other than the fact that it just is dope as hell, I don't see too many direct comparisons.
I would say that there's one example that I picked up on that
Mhm.
felt very reminiscent of a certain point within Funny Games.
Oh, okay, my favorite.
Yeah. So of course in Funny Games, when everything is going down, what's it called? We have that shot where what's it called? Our antagonist looks at the camera and just looks and goes like that.
Yeah.
There is a shot here when everything seems to have done well, right? Everything went right.
Yeah.
Dai finds the letter, gets the letter, is reading it, and she's looking directly at the camera, kind of like in a way of in Funny Games. It's like, I just subverted your expectations of what you thought this movie was going to be, and in a way, I feel like that was the same thing in here, where what's it called? Dai looks at the camera and is like, well, I bet you thought that was going to be it, right? You thought that it was going to end there, and then you thought that we were going to finish here, like. And she holds on for a moment because she looks at you for like a good 5 to 10 seconds.
See, that's the thing. I've never noticed that. I can't wait to rewatch it. That scene in particular, because it's after one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And just pick it up from there, because no, I've never noticed that. I could totally see that being intentional. I feel like that scene I feel so disrupted and disturbed by the nature of that scene and how happy you feel the moments before. And I feel like, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the song choices and the placement of the songs are also just so meticulous and intentional that in most movies it might not work, especially with songs this popular. A lot of very, very popular songs are used throughout the soundtrack, but it manages to work in a way that really helps push the story along, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. So, there is, I mean, to just begin the conversation, I'm gonna want to go ahead and get the one of the big aspects of this film out of the way, so that way we can at least talk about it and understand, at least bring my understanding of why I believe the director used this. So let's talk about the aspect ratio. Let's talk about the aspect ratio. So it's shot in 1:1, but there are two instances in the film where it like goes back to its like regular, a regular aspect ratio. That I'm not gonna pretend to know what aspect ratio it is, guys. It looks like your standard, what's it called? 1:6:9, but I'm not gonna,
just
what's it
full,
called? Yeah, it's full. It's full screen. We'll call it full screen.
We'll call it full screen. We'll call it full screen.
Yeah, goes back to full screen. I felt the aspect ratio was very needed here. I think that
Yes.
um as as what's it called as what's it called as claustrophobic as we can get to making this film,
Yeah.
as very tight as you can get to making this film, I think it brings in that feeling of like this is truly how it feels to be inside the head of Steve throughout this whole movie. Like you feel this tight, like you can't breathe, like
Yeah.
you can't see anything, like everything is happening and you really can't see what's happening. And like, it's like I feel like throughout this film we're really, inside the psyche of not just Steve, but at points die as well. Dies
Hmm.
psyche.
Yeah, it's another thing about the movie that I find so brilliant because it also sneaks up on you. Because when you're watching it at first, it's extremely jarring. Like
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you're missing so much of what's happening until you realize, like, after that first like car crash, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go, oh my goodness, they're just like zooming in on people's faces, and you're just like this close to them. Like there's no
Yeah.
room to move or to operate or to breathe, really. And as you said, like you start to realize, especially at the cumulative scene where he pushes the borders, you go, oh, okay, we are inside this dude's mind, like we are inside this dude's heart, his
Mm-hmm.
body, and that tightness and claustrophobia and that feeling of being lost, right? Of really not being able to see beyond what's right now, right in front of you, is
Yeah.
captured so amazingly with the borders. And like you said, with Dai's character too, when she has that dream sequences of things that are going to be okay, she feels free at that moment, right? Maybe this could
Mm-hmm.
be the truth, but it is
Yeah.
not the case. And and that's why those moments hurt even more, is the slow
Yeah.
push back to the aspect ratio, the original aspect ratio. It's painful, man. So painful.
And it's just so like it's also kind of reminding me like, like why does it matter for us to see what's left, what's not being covered by these,
Hmm.
by the aspect
Yeah,
ratio. It's
sure.
like, what we need to be paying attention and what we need to be focused on are these characters. And it just like something like what's it called, I don't know if you've ever seen Son of Saul is
Haven't.
Son of Saul is a painful film, but it's shot on 4:3. It's shot
Mm.
4:3 aspect ratio, but most of its shots are like a first person kind of view, or like, mostly are like medium close-ups. So like you don't see a lot, but when you are seeing it, it's there.
Yeah.
Like, so you're kind of moving through the concentration camp, and you're seeing like the out of focus of the bodies that are around, but you're still looking at the people in the foreground
Mm.
instead of the background. So, you know, in here it was just so interesting the way they was presenting it, because it's like, concentrate on them for now, because like them are the only people, or the people who are actually in frame are the only people that seem to matter in our story right now. You
Yeah.
know, there's no need to be distracted by, the other things that are outside of our frame.
Yeah. And like I did not realize how much of an impact that this movie had on like the next 5 or 6 years of indie movies that I had seen all prior to this, like movies like Waves, basically Trey Edward Schultz's like filmography, right? Like so much of his use of aspect ratio, in
Yeah.
my opinion, feels very inspired by this movie, especially in Waves, which is another movie I really, really love. But yeah, the
Hmm.
way that this is kind of bled through in so many different films, like you're saying, Son of Saul and everything, it's like, yeah, the use of aspect ratio is one that oftentimes feels needless in movies now, especially in a lot of independent movies I've seen where they tried to play with it in different ways just for the sake of doing it.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is just like, it feels like a breath of fresh air even on a rewatch. Just like, wow,
Yeah.
this person that made this cares so much about everything that's happening right now.
Yeah. So and that's why this felt like so unique to what I was watching, because I didn't expect, this. I expected to get annoyed about this
Mm,
aspect ratio. And I was like, because y'all don't get it. One by one, literally one by one aspect ratio, you won't even see like my face if I did it in this video.
yeah,
You wouldn't even see like, you probably see Mikey's ear,
yeah,
but that's it. It's not a conventional aspect ratio. but it works here. It really works, and you're able to. And I would go as far to say that this is still a really beautifully shot movie with that aspect
Oh,
ratio.
dude, yeah, 1000%. Like I feel like you could take so many frames from this movie and it would be like a painting or a picture you'd find in like a coffee house,
Yeah,
like a like an artsy coffee house or something. Like
yeah,
it's just so tight, and because of it you're forced to like focus on shit sometimes in this movie that you don't want to even focus on, really. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Some very uncomfortable moments throughout this movie. Um
yeah.
and some very like discombobulating ones too. Like I think of the scene in the bar, like when he's trying to do the karaoke and those people are yelling at him. Like you could feel like that buildup of pressure. You know, you could
Oh
feel
yeah,
everything because of how tight the frame
yeah.
is, and it's yeah,
Oh,
it's awesome.
especially that scene where Kyla like reacts that first time with him, and he gets on top of
Oh,
him, and
dude,
she's yeah. You like you're so freaking tight, bro. Like you're there,
yeah,
and it's like holy shit, I can't freaking breathe right now.
yeah, and the movie's intense in like a very unconventional way too. Like, for example, that scene, right? It's just so sudden, and you're waiting for a moment where Steve is kind of like put in his place in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, like that scene is so important too because it provides like that switch where you realize like Steve doesn't even understand like the full extent of his behavior, not even at all. Almost like he does not understand boundaries really well. He doesn't understand like the
Yeah.
ability to differentiate like sexual love versus like motherly love or like friendship love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you kind of just that's when you start feeling bad for him. And I think the movie is brilliant because for the first half of the movie, with the very little knowledge you know about Steve, I don't know how you felt the first time watching it, but the first time I watched it, I was like, this kid is like annoying as shit, like, and he is horrible. Like for the first bit of the movie, like
Yeah.
he does some absolutely does and says some absolutely horrendous things.
Oh
And
yeah.
it isn't until you really like obviously you sympathize with him because he does have mental issues, but then it comes a point where you go, it's just beyond that. Like this kid just needs to be loved. Like that's it, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's what's so great about the performance in this movie. So like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, of course, I was throughout this film, like especially the first half, I was like, this guy's a piece of shit. This kid's a piece of shit.
Yeah, dude.
Like this kid is bad. But you would see every single moment that he was around Kyla, or just every moment he was like around his mom and he wasn't in public, that desperate look of just that said like just love me, like I want to be loved. It's
Yeah.
like it's that that facial acting and that like body language every single time he wasn't out in public, like he just his face read as like I'm just in constant pain, I'm in constant pain,
Mm-hmm.
and all I need is for you to love me. And he just doesn't get that. He doesn't get, but he also like he's
Yeah.
just been so traumatized that he's not able to understand, and differentiate between love and what love is and
Mm-hmm.
what a healthy friendship is and what. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The,
I'm gonna go. Oh, sorry.
no,
You
no,
want
go
to?
for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say we're gonna go ahead and get into like one of the first things here. So, obviously this film really concerns itself with depicting mental illness and especially ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
especially a form of ADHD that comes with violent tendencies. uh, and I felt that that this film was well, this film did a pretty good job at this. But I felt that what's it called? There are moments in here where it was like you really felt that unpredictability. It never felt disingenuous, never felt irresponsible of a portrayal. I felt like it was like real, like, and also I read that Dolan basically based this off of like people he knew and people he interacted with,
Mm-hmm.
and people he was observing in their interactions while living with ADHD. Um, what did you think about the portrayal of ADHD, man?
See, I don't know anyone personally affected with it to this degree, at least. So I can't say how realistic of a depiction it was, but to me, it felt like a very unbiased look at what it's like to have ADHD, and it really puts you in the shoes of Steve at multiple points throughout the movie. And like you said, dude, the look of just please love me and just please help me,
Yeah.
I think is a lot of what really gets it through why his behavior is the way that it is, and
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking because of that. So to know that that's based off of people from Dolan's actual life, like I totally can believe it, because all the characters, in my opinion, like as flawed as they are, feel entirely
Yeah.
realistic, for better and for worse. Like that's just who they are, you know.
Yeah. And I wasn't, I'm not saying that Steve is violent because of his ADHD. I think his violent
Mm,
tendencies come from his upbringing, losing his father at a young age,
yeah.
also just being ignored, not being properly loved. I think that he found a way to express his anger in a very, what's it called, rough way. And that coupled with, probably the mess that his brain is,
Mm,
it helps to him to unleash his violent tendencies. But I'm not saying that he's violent because of his mental illness. um and I thought that just there was, Steve's character is just so interesting in that sense. It's just how much we kind of like have those moments where Steve isn't necessarily like in the right,
yeah.
but you're like, this kid is trying. At the very least, he's trying, because like especially that bar scene, he
Dude,
got the
yeah.
balls to do that. He goes up there and he's just like, you're in that tight shot and you're really like reading off his face. It's like they're making fun of me and all I wanted to do was just try this
Just sing
because,
this song, dude.
yeah, I just wanted to sing my song. And I'm trying this, like I'm being vulnerable with y'all. I'm doing something I would have never done before. Like, um and you just have that great, what's it called, reading off that face because of just this great performance by him, by the actor. But or just like every moment that he's with Kyla, like he feels like his brain is kind of like simmering down after
Mhm.
that first interaction. How he really kind of learns to appreciate Kyla so much. And there's just kind of, like I said, it's just him like being vulnerable, but in a way of saying like, please appreciate me, please love me, because like it's obvious my mom fears me more than she loves me.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I definitely believe that. And also, it's like I think it's the thing that brings the three main characters together is the desire to be loved. They all feel
Mhm.
like severely unloved in some way. Like we don't really get to see Kyla's like home life or whatever, but you get like a pretty clear implication that it isn't great. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
her
a pretty
husband's just concerned with work and
yeah, it's like a very thankless and loveless marriage, it seems like. And then
yeah,
Di is just alone. She's been alone this whole time. She hasn't seen her kid in however many was it months or years? I don't even remember. Like it's they say at the beginning, like it's been a long time since she's seen Steve prior
it's been
to
a
meeting
while.
up with him. Yeah, so then her readjusting to that, and then Steve just wanting to be loved. And I caught this on this viewing where like he's looking at his dad's stuff or like his old stuff, and he sees like the picture of his dad, and the it zooms in a little bit, and you see his reflection before you can see his dad's face. And I had never
Yeah,
noticed that before, but this time I kind of took it as he's not just trying to fill like the role of being the son. Like he's trying to give Di the role of him being like an adult too, and he like he tries to demand respect like very early on in the
yeah,
movie, saying like I'm an adult too, like I'm your equal, But
yeah,
I think that's what makes those scenes of uncomfortability in terms of like how he interacts with Di like make a little bit more
yeah,
sense to the viewer at least.
yeah. Well, he's trying to fill in the shoes of his father. He's trying to be the man of the house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's typical like that, right? The role of the man of the house ends up being like given to the next male in the house
Mm-hmm.
after that the other one passes or just leaves. And in a way that Steve is trying to fulfill, the role of being the protector of his
Yeah,
mother, but
definitely.
also being that sort of like, calming thing for his mom, trying to be the loving figure for his mom, when he should realize that like he doesn't need to do that. He just needs to be her son.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for him though. It's like really really difficult because he doesn't know how to be her son right now. And
Yeah.
that first, so like y'all, if y'all didn't see this movie, just like that first instance of like how violent it gets,
Oh man,
with
yeah.
when he comes back with the necklace and stuff, and like things get thrown around and like hits him in the head with like a vase, and you know it's you feel that fear right there, man. Like
It's a horrifying scene, dude. Yeah, it feels straight out of like a horror movie, like out of nowhere. She's getting choked. She hits him, like you said. Then he starts chasing her. She throws the bookshelf down, and you feel complete, because this is also before the scene that we mentioned earlier with like Steve and Kyla's like confrontation. So
Mhm.
Steve at this point is just beyond like an uncomfortable character to just like have to be
Yeah,
around and have to watch on screen. So like in that moment, yeah, dude, you're running with Di. You're just like, get the hell out of there. You gotta go now. You gotta
yeah,
go.
yeah. And so just it's just really, what's it called, saddening to see the way that the journey of him and his illness
Yeah.
follows, because we have these moments where it's really hard, and then it finally gets good. It gets good because like he develops a really genuine, beautiful friendship with Kyla. Um, you know, I wouldn't even say friendship. I think that he finally develops a mother relationship with
Mm,
Kyla that he never got from his mom.
yeah, totally.
And yeah, and we have that beautiful release in the middle of the film where like he's free, things are good, and then we just go back and we see how like and we see the extent of like how the illness is gonna getting worse, and just him end up getting to the point where he has to be given to the hands of the state to be dealt with. And it's just it's truly interesting the way that Dolan decided to portray the illness, but also show like this is kind of how difficult it would be for mentally ill people when you have when you have a country that basically um that that basically criminalizes you for being mentally ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And even then, it's not just criminalizing mental illness, it criminalizes poverty.
yeah, dude. And it's like a scary thing. Just not just watching it go down. It's like in the back of your head the whole movie that at any point Di can just be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna send him here. You know what I mean? Like at any point in the first half of the movie she could have done it, she doesn't. And
Mhm.
then when it finally reaches its head, like you're not even ready for it. It's in the moment when you least expect that that's going to happen, and it does, and it just is even more heartbreaking. You feel for Steve so much because he has so much trust in them, you know.
Yeah.
Like you said, he builds that friendship or that mother son relationship too with Kyla, and the culmination of that is like to him an ultimate betrayal of trust, of
Yeah.
love, and of everything that they built together. It's absolutely crushing. It's absolutely crushing.
Yeah. And Kyla feels it too,
Yeah,
because she even like she'll go like when that last scene she's like, I wouldn't abandon my family, and it's like I don't think she's talking about them, dude. She's talking about Steve. He wouldn't have abandoned Steve.
yeah, dude.
Yeah. But
Uh,
it just brings up a really good conversation also about like the eternal battle between law and morality, right? Like you have this
mm,
law that's extremely fucked up. You know, just because this is a law and it's a option, shouldn't be the option you take. Like
yeah,
as a mother, you should be able to fight for your child as much as you can.
mhm,
As a parent, you should be able to fight to have that child as much as you can. And when it gets really hard, you shouldn't have to give up. Because that's your child. You gave birth to that, bro.
yeah, dude.
It's your blood.
It's your blood.
It's got half of you. And it was just, to me, to have that implication of like this, you know it's not an inciting incident, but it's that implication of something that's like kind of looming the whole time, because
Yeah,
you're like, oh, when are they gonna finally get this law in place? Because it's like we're gonna see it be activated, and it's like it's just gonna be really, really, really heartbreaking, because like even she regrets it there in the moment.
almost
She's like,
immediately. Yeah,
yeah, and it just how hard it must be to not just like not because it like this is a fictional law, but like you have how different is this from like giving your child up, like, oh, it's gotten
mhm,
hard.
yeah,
I don't want to deal with this kid anymore. I'm just gonna give him up. You know, or what's it called? Sending them off to like boarding school. Like, oh, they're like difficult to handle. I'm just gonna put them off and ship them off. Like, those are things that are not necessarily against the law, but like it's against morality. It's against like the
Yeah.
idea of being a parent.
And that's like even at the beginning, like that's where she's picking him up from is like another place that she had sent him to originally, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
So and like when we get to the end, like you're saying, it does bring into question like did Di do the right thing? Like you're right. Is there a line into which love is not enough? And they bring that up like at the very beginning of the movie. The person doing like the transitionary process to get Steve back with Di is like love just doesn't like fix everything. And Di like laughs in her face. She's like, yo, well, it's my son, so I'm gonna do it. And then when the
Yeah.
movie ends, and even the last song, Born to Die by Lana Del Rey, like that's literally one of the lyrics. Sometimes love is not enough, and it's just such like a heartbreak. Everything about the movie hurts, dude. I think that's the
Oh
best way to
yeah.
say it. It just fucking hurts because like you empathize with Di too. I mean, it gets to a point where it's like he like full on kisses her, you know what I mean? And in that
Yeah.
moment, you could kind of
Oh,
see like her realization, like,
gropes her breast too.
yeah, dude. And she's like, well, this has gone to a point, and he like tries to commit suicide. There's a suicide attempt there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she just is like completely overwhelmed, and she feels unequipped to like handle any of this. And you empathize with her too, because you feel bad for Steve, but he's being put in a horrible situation where all trust is lost. But also you feel for Di so much because she's in fear too. You know what I mean? Like she's in complete fear of not just like losing her son to his mental illnesses and him becoming a more violent person, but also for herself and for both of their futures. Like if she continues to, because she's an enabler, right? For the majority of the movie, she doesn't really like but like refuse the stuff that he's doing. Even when in the scene where he touches her breasts, her reaction is not like a normal like motherly reaction to some shit like that happening.
Yeah,
She's
it's
just
more
like,
like, dude, somebody's
stop.
here. Stop.
Yeah, yeah, dude, exactly. So there's like
Yeah.
a clear lack of boundaries even before the movie already starts. And that brings into the thing too, where it's like nature versus nurture. You know what I mean? Like Di raised him without a lot of these boundaries after the dad died, so it seems. And you wonder too, like how much did that lead to Steve being the way that Steve is? It's a
Yeah.
completely unfair position for him to be in. It sucks. It's horrible.
And it's not just with like, with Steve, because like we never really find out why Kyla wasn't teaching, but in that moment
Yeah,
that happened with Steve, I think she got to the point where she put her hands on a kid or something.
that's a really I've never heard that interpretation. That's really I could totally see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because she's like, "Oh, I'm taking a sabbatical." Like, no, girl, I don't think you're taking a sabbatical. I think you got fired.
Yeah, and that
And just
adds to like the whole aspect of like her stutter then if you go by that theory, because then she
yeah,
just fears to even reach a certain level of emotion or of
yeah,
anger, right? Before she goes back to snapping on a kid like she does with Steve. So, wow,
yeah.
I'm going to
'Cause she
look at
even
that
says
differently
like,
the whole time too.
yeah, because she says like, "I'm not ready to work with kids again,"
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, I have a feeling that like somebody got a little bit too, what's it called, too close with her, like too
Mhm.
like wanted to step up, and
Mhm.
she ended up having to put her hands on a kid,
Yeah, because
and
she says like they're high school kids too, right? I think
yeah,
she says that. So they are older and within Steve's age range. So that makes
yeah,
a lot of sense for sure.
yeah. But like, and that's one thing, the whole way that they tackle education in this movie too. um
Mm.
God, I just, I'm telling you, man, like it sucks how like there's, like I said, there's a lot of things that are criminalized within this movie. Mental illness criminalized, but poverty is the one thing that is also criminalized the most, because it's obvious that Di does not have a grand education. So
Yeah.
when you're placed in this position, like in the real world that we are living outside of this movie,
Mhm.
you have a kid who you can't send to school because he's unable to interact with others because of violent tendencies, and you don't have the proper education to give him a homeschool education. It must be so difficult to have to sit down and be able to do this, where you're kind of like, I don't have money to ask for a tutor,
Yeah.
but I'm lucky that I was able to make friends with the girl who's across the street, who is a old high school teacher,
Mhm.
because it just felt like it felt so heartbreaking in that first scene to have to see what's it called, Di try to teach him, and she's just like, I don't know what the fuck
Yeah,
is
she's
going
looking
on.
at the books like I have no idea what any of this means. It's like,
Hmm.
and you're right. Like that adds a whole new layer to it too, because it's like you're saying one, she would have to homeschool him, which she doesn't have the education to be doing that in the first place, and so she has to learn alongside Steve basically, and then teach him. And then she doesn't have the money to send him to school or get a tutor. So then the option is leaving him at home alone, right? And to go get money and to go work, in order to figure something out. And that's another heartbreaking aspect of the film, where you realize that like Steve's probably been alone like for the majority of his life, even with both parents were alive. Like a lot of the time they were probably working. You know what I mean? And it's like, damn, dude, this kid just got a whole ass unfair shot at life, and and
Yeah,
it's very real in that way. It is very real and tragic in that way, that a lot of situations you're just born into, you can't fix that. You can't pick your family and stuff like that. And
yeah.
it's not anybody's fault. That's just the reality of the situation, the reality of the film that they set up.
And that's not, and that's why necessarily I didn't like, feel like um Guy's reaction to him stealing was warranted. Of
Mm,
course, it should have been a moment where she should have like pulled him aside and be like, "Hey, man, like, you're not supposed to do that because like that shit's gonna land you back in jail."
mm,
But it's like that came from like a part of, I think, Steve's brain where he's like, "I just want to help my mom.
dude,
I can't work.
totally.
I obviously can't work, and I'm not. I can't get these classes because I'm terrible at school. Like, I got to do something because like I don't think we're gonna be able to eat." And like that came from like an instinctual, like, part of his brain where he was like, just want to fucking help my mom because I really love her,
Yeah.
and like she's not working. We don't have money. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna have to fucking steal. Now, of course, he probably shouldn't have stole like the necklace. That
Yeah.
that was a little bit
That
of
pushed
his,
it over the edge. Yeah.
yeah, that was a little bit of his crime tendencies coming into
Hmm.
play. But like stuff like the food, like that was him like reacting on instinct.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like, and that's another scene where you're saying like the acting is so brilliant, because you could see his heart breaking like by the
Yeah.
second. Every line of dialogue that that Dai says as that scene goes on just like continues to like tear him down more and more until he like goes in like this unleashable like rage, like this red zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's totally sucks, because that is like one of the few scenes where Dai like actually tries to discipline him, and it's one of the few scenes where Steve is doing something wrong, sure, but it's something that he's trying to help. Like he's genuinely has
Yeah.
like the best intentions with what he's doing for once, especially at that point in the movie. Is one of the few like times we see him behaving in a way that is illegal, but morally like he is trying to do the right thing and help his mom out. And the reaction that she gives him
Mhm.
completely just
Sets him
fucks him
over the
up,
edge.
dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah. And it's just like the whole time I'm kind of thinking about like, like obviously somebody who's well off, would be able to get like really good outpatient treatment for this kid, so that we can go to like a really good like facility to get some help for his be put on good meds, because like
Mm-hmm.
they're poor, man. They don't have much. Like he's not gonna get the right treatment he needs.
Yeah.
And even then in Canada, where like healthcare is a little bit better than what's it called in America, it's still a very classist thing that separates, really good proper treatment versus like fine or okay treatment, where like
Yeah.
Steve needs more than like medication. He needs treatment, he needs therapy, he needs
Mm-hmm.
cognitive and behavioral therapy, and like, he needs a lot of other things that in his position in his family they're not able to afford.
Yeah, and even like by the end, when the S14 law is like kind of showcased, I guess you kind of see what's happening with him, and he's like on the
Mhm.
phone. It just like you realize too, like this wasn't even. Is this even gonna help him? Because
No.
he's just like drugged up out of his mind. Like he's on the phone with his mom. He's like, I'm so fucking high right now. And it's like, dude,
Yeah.
like what you're saying, is he even being given the right medication? Is he even going through therapy, or is he just like locked up? Like it's just essentially like he's in prison and just they gave him like a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff to like subdue him, is essentially what it is.
It's essentially state sanctioned abuse, bro.
Yeah.
It's basically
And they can hit him, and they can hit
legal
him.
abuse.
Yeah.
It's legal abuse. Like, you know, this law basically allows the state to not have any repercussion for abuse.
Yeah.
And it's literally sanctioned by the state. And it's like that is like the one of the hardest parts to watch. Like there's a lot of stuff in here that's pretty hard to watch. Like it's not easy to watch him kiss
It's
his
a hard
mom.
watch for
No,
sure.
but to me, the hardest stuff to watch is when those guys come out with those tasers and everything
Dude.
and start being down on him, and it's like this is what you just turned your son to. You turned your son to the hands of the state, and the state's gonna pull out every inch of its power that it has now that you gave away your son, to make sure that he lives through hell. Because
Yeah.
if it truly was good treatment, he wouldn't have jumped off the window. He wouldn't have tried to jump off the window.
Yeah.
Like, no, like this is it's fucking state sanctioned abuse.
It's just yeah, that scene where he thinks that she's gonna go to the restroom, and then all of a sudden those dudes come out, and that's another scene where like the aspect ratio is like perfect, because you can see like in the very background like some people walking over, and you can't really make out like what they look like, and you realize there's 3 of them dressed the exact same way, and you go, oh shit, she is signing him up to go to that S14 thing, and he's about to basically get arrested and get subdued in a horrible way. And that scene is just so brutal. Like he's literally screaming for help. Like he is like, please God, just do not do this to me. Like I'll do anything, just don't do this to me. And they're just like, you signed the papers, so sorry. He has to do this now.
He gets into like this really like primitive, like way, like kind of primitive yells, but like also very like innocent pleas.
Like a child, dude.
Mom. Like,
yeah.
It's like, yeah. Transports himself back to like being a child. And he's like, Mom, please help me. Like, please don't let them take me away. And it's so fucking heartbreaking, man. But also like how important that friendship to with him and Kyla really shows there, because Kyla's just like I don't think Kyla was told that they were gonna do that.
See, I thought that the first 2 times I watched it, and then this most recent time, it's like right before Dai has like that dream sequence.
Mm-hmm.
You can see Kyla, and she's like standing by the window, and she looks like so like forlorn by all this. So that kind of insinuated to me that she has a knowledge of what's happening, and she's just not going to say shit and just be here to say goodbye.
Because it's not her place.
Exactly.
Because it's not her place, and she can't say it because it's not her place. But when she's out there and she's crying, and she's like, like with every fiber of my being, I wish that I could find a way to like throughout her head right there is like, I wish I could like adopt this kid somehow. I wish that I could like because it all just comes out in that confrontation with her, and she's like, you know, basically saying like, if that would have been my kid, I wouldn't have abandoned him.
Yeah, dude, it's like
you did the wrong thing.
It's so brutal too, because like Dai has no friends. Like they make it very clear in the movie that like the formation of her friend with Kyla and that dude down the street who later becomes like a dickhead, Paul, I think his name is.
Yeah. Oh fuck that guy. That guy was
fuck
trying
Paul,
to fuck.
man.
Yeah, Paul was just trying to fuck.
Like those are the only 2 people like that she talks to, is essentially what they show. And then at the beginning of the movie, she doesn't even know who Kyla is, right? So, and you could see like the desperation in her eyes too. And Kyla's like, "Oh well, yeah, I'm moving next weekend," you know, and she just is kind of like ready to put this whole thing behind her, and Dai's like, well, you guys come over for dinner or like gonna come visit or whatever, and it's like she's like, please don't leave too. Like she can feel it, and it sucks. The whole situation is just shitty for all of them, and that's the worst part about it.
Yeah, and it's just like, and I was gonna go back to like the law and like especially the hospital, because like look at just how they like these workers are. Like in that last scene, that ending, these workers are just chatting like it's just another normal day in the office,
dude. Yeah, no, literally, they're just dicking
another
around,
normal day in the office. We're just dicking around, and it's like, dude, do you not see what y'all are doing to these people? Like these poor children children, bro. They're not even of legal age yet, are
Yeah.
being handed to you to basically abuse them, and you're here just like, it's just another day at the office. We're just gonna fuck around, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's wildly insane how like stripped of morality those characters are, and like really just stripped of morality the state the country is because of
Hmm.
passing that law.
Yeah.
And
And everyone you see in like those positions of power, whether they're people that are running the schools or they are the orderlies at that place, like are all like such dickheads in the movie. Like they are all like just
yeah,
fuck a kid, like just send him off to one of these things and we'll take care of it or whatever. You gotta pay for it though, but we'll take care of it. And they're all
yeah.
just like, yeah, it's just our job. It's crazy.
And like a lot of these kids are just simply just looking for love and looking for the attention that they want that they were just never
Yeah.
able to get as they were kids. And that's Steve. I mean, it's that Steve inside in of itself. It's like it's just this because Steve isn't an adult yet. He's just a child.
Hmm.
Steve is a child who just like desperately, desperately wants his mother's love. Like
Yeah.
he may not like he doesn't understand. That's why that dynamic of the family is just so interesting to me. It's like
Hmm.
he doesn't really see his mom as like his mom, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I tend to say that like Kyla really was the mom for him because like when she asked him to like don't call her babe or anything like that, and don't like do anything like that, like he respected it real quick and like
Immediately. Hmm.
immediately. And maybe it was the fact that like she put her hands on him, but like still it was the fact that like, oh, this person here cares about me enough to want to
Hmm.
be here every day when she really doesn't have an obligation to be here because like she could easily be like, dude,
None.
you're not even paying me, dude. Like, why
Yeah.
am I here? Like, I don't
Yeah.
gotta deal with your kid. And like, if just and that's but like we go to with Di and her and Steve, it's like it's more of a French. It's like no, we're not even a friendship, bro. It's more like like we're just here living together because like
Yeah, dude. They're like roommates.
it's not, it's not really a family. It doesn't really feel like a mom in a
Yeah,
sense.
like she just like walks in on him jerking off, and he's just like, "Why don't you just knock?" Like it's just like the dynamic is like just
Yeah,
like really odd and very very strange, and she doesn't even react to it strange at all. She's just like, "Well, don't leave your door unlocked, and shit like that." It's like, what is
yeah,
happening right now? But you're
yeah.
right that Kyla kind of takes that like motherly role, and in fact, like you got that in my head more right now because then you look back on like the scene like at the bank, right, where Di is
Hmm.
like crying. It's like the cover of the movie where he like puts his hand on her mouth and kisses it,
Yeah,
and he's kind of like in a lot of moments he is behaving like almost like a father figure in a weird way where he's like, I'm gonna take care of you, like this is gonna be fine, like
yeah.
not stuff that a son should not have to say or worry about or do. He's
Hmm.
trying to do all of it, and I think that adds another whole layer onto the scene later where he steals and whatnot. But yeah, dude, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Because he's like concerned more with being the protector and being like
Hmm.
the loving figure for her than being the son and like him desperately being like, I shouldn't have to be doing this shit. Like you're supposed to be the one taking care of me. You're supposed to be the one loving
Dude,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, and like I feel like a lot of that was that relationship was probably strained from the get go after his dad died.
Mhm.
And because it's obvious that that Di took a step back and really what's it called pushed her son away
Yeah.
while
It's
her
very
son was
clear.
hurting.
It's
Yeah,
very, very clear that like she just feels so unequipped to handle it that she'd rather someone else
yeah,
take that burden or take the brunt of it. And you could even, think about that with the character of Kyla too, where she's kind of just like, all right, you do it, to an extent. Obviously, she needs to make money and she needs to
hmm,
provide for Steve and her, but also you feel like she feels like this giant, enormous sense of relief that Kyla's just willing to do this and that she doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And that's when
yeah,
that freedom happens with the Wonderwall scene and everything, where they all
yeah,
are at the peak of their freeness and their freedom.
yeah, yeah, and of course that dream sequence, like
Oh, dude.
here's everything here's everything I've ever wanted from you, and sadly, you won't ever be able to have this. Like, you won't be able to graduate high school. You won't be able to marry,
Mhm.
what's it called, somebody. You won't be able to give me a child, what's it called, a grandchild, and just how like heartbreaking that is, not just for Di, but like, for Steve. It's like, girl, if you're feeling this way, imagine how Steve feels. Like,
Yeah.
to feel like, oh, I'm pretty much never going to amount to nothing because I'm at a constant war with my brain because at home I just never have that love. And because I've never had that love, I'm not going to be able to respond to being given love by a partner eventually.
And he mentions like the dreams that he has too, like the goals and the things that he wants to do.
He wants to go to Juilliard. He wants to do all
Yeah.
that.
And he feels confident that he can do it at that point, but it starts to make you wonder, like, this is one of those movies that, like, it hurts to think about what happens after this movie ends.
Yeah.
Especially for Di and Steve, and you're just like, damn, like, their lives are never gonna be okay. Like,
No.
shit is just gonna be like this forever.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's horrible. It's just it's so fucking sad. It's so sad.
It's a sad movie, man. It made
Yeah.
I don't know if it made you cry, but it makes me cry
yeah.
every single time
Yeah.
I've watched it. It makes me cry.
I was really emotional, which is just because like I have cousins who deal with ADHD. Like
Mhm.
I have cousins who this probably if I were to show them this movie, it hits a little too close to home
Yeah.
to them, and it's something that's just like not even like the implication of the law and per se, but just like the idea of like as much as you try and as much as you tried for so long, this person who you love more, like who's supposed to love you unconditionally, doesn't show you it, and it's like you're at an age where like you're supposed to be an adult, but it's at those later ages where you really start to see the effects of not being given that at such a younger age.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, was there anything else you wanted to bring up before we close out the conversation, man?
Dude, first of all, I want people to go watch this movie if they're watching this
Yeah.
and haven't seen the movie. Like, we
Please
haven't
watch this
like
movie.
we've talked about it for an hour and like we've barely even scratched the surface really of the movie because that's how much there is there. Dude, I don't know, man. It just like we're talking about. I think that the ending, the last shot, and the Wonderwall scene are two of like my favorite movie scenes of all
cinematic
time.
beauty, bro. Cinematic
Dude,
beauty.
like, yeah, I think we should talk. We should give those scenes a little chat about because it's like, dude, when he pushes the borders, you just like you could just feel that. There's no other way to describe that. Like if we saw that in a theater, like it would be even more life changing than it is just watching it at home. But even that effect of you've been sitting there for an hour and then you feel this like aspect ratio and then you forget about it completely until that scene because it becomes normal.
It's him being like, I'm done living. Like I'm going to free myself.
It's gonna be okay
from the cages of my brain. I'm gonna move this out, and I'm gonna free myself.
Fuck,
and I'm gonna be okay. And it does it in the most beautiful manner ever. And it's like that's why that moment where it does it, what's it called, where we go back to the one by one is just so like it's so like that's my one instance of fear in this movie where it's like because it happens and it just closes back in and she's just looking and she's like it's about to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, and you could feel that the shift in tone happen again where in the beginning of the movie it was pretty dark and dramatic, then you get that moment of levity and then it goes back to even that dramatic aspect again, multiply it by like 3 or 4, and that's where we're at now. And I think I don't know how intentional this was. I'm assuming it was very, very intentional from Dolan because he picked all the songs himself, is the fact that he used Wonderwall for this scene specifically, which is a song that most people know. Most people, even if they don't like it, they know the lyrics to it because it's one of like the most played songs ever. And it's like this sense of familiarity and comfortability that you get that you haven't had the whole movie. And then it's immediately followed by like the lowest of lows is another layer to like the heartbreaking nature of the movie. You're like, wow, that was so fun 5 seconds ago, and now here we are, and it's even worse than we were at before. And how I want to know, like, before we get off here, your interpretation of the ending, because I've heard so many different ways people have viewed it. I would love to know what your thoughts on it, man.
That last shot really looked like he was close. Like
Mhm.
he was really close. And if my knowledge of cinematic lenses and just camera do me well, it looked like that worker was nowhere near being able to catch him.
Mhm.
So I think that he successfully committed suicide.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It,
hard to say after at a certain point because it's like it's left unknown for a reason, right? But then it's
mm-hmm,
like no matter what, like this is so fucked because he either jumps out the window, right? Dies, gets really hurt, and then thrust back into the institution again, or he just runs completely like just face first like into the window and is probably abused like even further for this act of defiance,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's just like there is no like there's no happy ending, but for this one moment, this 10 seconds as he's running toward this window, he feels free almost again, like
Yeah.
things are gonna be okay, and it's just so fucking insane and heartbreaking, bro.
And it's the sad part is to say that him committing suicide is probably the best case scenario in that moment.
Dude.
Because like I'm going to I end this quickly or I go keep living through hell in this film.
Yeah.
In this institution.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna get better. It's not. They're gonna keep doing worse. So it pains me to say, but in that moment, what he was doing was probably the best what's it
Mhm.
called
I totally
the
get
best
that.
scenario for him and the best
Yeah.
decision that he could make. And it's really sad to kind of come to that conclusion because it shouldn't have been that way because his mother should have fought for him more and not resorted to the law.
Mm-hmm.
But like I felt like Steve towards like the end of the movie already knew what was coming. He just didn't want to accept that his mother would have to do that because like
Yeah.
he did that in the thing in the in the store,
Mm-hmm.
in the place, and it's like, you know, I think that was Steve kind of like, well, I think I know what's gonna go down, but I don't want to convince myself that my mother is willing to to give me up like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try to like end this before it gets worse. But yeah, I think that Steve knew that he was eventually gonna have to end up at the
Yeah.
institution.
What a movie, man.
Yeah.
Mommy.
And thus concludes our conversation on mommy.
Jesus Christ.
Um, it's been great having you, bro.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah,
I it was an absolute pleasure to chat about. I can't wait for you to
yeah,
rewatch it. We could talk about
yeah.
it even more because, like I said, there's so much. Even like when they show the microwave when Steve first comes back and it just says hell for a second before
Hell
becoming
yeah,
hello, dude. Just like the
yeah,
little things like that you catch
yeah.
make this movie one of the best. And I'm so happy. Thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for having me on to talk about this movie in particular. It was an absolute pleasure,
Dude, thanks
despite
for helping me, man. Thanks for
despite
helping
the
me.
themes, dude. Always,
Yeah,
anytime, dude. Come on,
it's
we help
I
each other.
need somebody to just kick my ass a little bit so I can get back to doing the things I need to do. But
Dude, same.
of course, if you don't, so I forgot to tell you this, but you're supposed to choose a movie before the episode ends for you to
Ooh,
do for next season. But if you
okay.
don't have a choice right now, it's okay because this was like more like, hey, I'm trying to come back and I'm trying to do
Hmm.
this show again. If you already have one that you think, if you
I
want to
think I
claim it for now,
do. I
okay.
think I
You
do.
can
I don't.
always change it, and I'm sure that I'm gonna give you 2 slots next season, so you're
Oh, I
good.
appreciate that, man. Well, I
Yeah.
think at least I think I was tossing back two in my head, but I think I want
Mhm.
to go with this one in particular because I know you haven't seen it. I know a lot of people haven't seen it, and I kind of want
Yeah.
to. I like picking movies that are gonna maybe get some new eyes on it. It's a movie that I'm sure you've heard a lot about, a lot of mixed things about, song to song. I think it's time for you to see it, roll.
Oh man, we're gonna cover our first Malik here, bro.
I hope so, dude. That would be
Yeah.
fun. Song to song would be fun. That's a movie I've watched too
Yeah.
many times as well.
That's your favorite Malik film, right?
At the moment, yes, it is.
I what else from him have you seen?
Knight of Cups. I've seen Tree of Life. But I need to give Tree of Life another rewatch because I don't think I was in the right place to be watching that movie at the time.
Yeah.
And I've seen like half of the Thin Red Line. I need to watch Badlands for sure. I want to
Yeah.
watch all of the Thin Red Lines. I think that has potential to be right up there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the
You
three
haven't
ones
done
that
Days
I've
of
seen.
Heaven yet.
Dude, I haven't seen his quote unquote like masterful good stuff. You know what I mean? I've seen his
Yeah, that's why
garbage,
you're
according to most
recommending.
people.
That's why you're recommending That's
Song
why
to
you're
song.
recommending song to song. But hey, I mean, I'll put it here, bro. We're gonna do
Yeah,
song to
dude.
song.
To be fair, like I genuinely feel like that movie, like it strikes a chord with me that I totally get why people are like, this is just the most pretentious, like obnoxious. People are complaining about being rich movie ever. I totally
Yeah.
get that. And that's how I feel about Knight of Cups. And people have drawn that comparison as well to me and be like, how do you like Song to Song if you don't like Knight of Cups? But we'll talk
Yeah.
about it hopefully next season, dude. I can't wait.
Of course, bro. Of course. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Of course. Do you
It's
want
an
to let
honor,
the
man.
people
Thank
know?
you.
You want to let the people know where they can find you?
Sure. Well, I'm coming back to YouTube at the end of this month. I feel like every time on this show, I've said that at this point, or every time I've been like on your channel, like
You're
I've said
busy,
like
man. You're
I'm
trying
either
to finish
coming back
school.
or I'm like
Yeah.
leaving YouTube for a while. But yeah, I'm coming back to YouTube. Hopefully this time permanently.
Yeah.
For more Chu on this, I want to do some like video essays and stuff. So you can find me at Michael Chu on YouTube. Michael Chu 4 real, the number 4 on Twitter, and Michael Chu on Letterboxd. Those are like my main forms of social right now. Instagram, Michael Chu. I don't really post that much there, but you can find me there too.
Sick, man. Um, and as always, y'all can find me on Instagram and Twitter as the Nerd Chicano. And I'm on Twitch, twitch.tv/Chicano. And I'm on YouTube as Raul Alejandro Mendoza because I am 43 subscribers away from having my own custom URL. But of course, you can go to Before I Leave Film on Instagram for any updates about Before I Leave and how you're going to be able to watch it and stuff. You know, that will come when it comes. And
Hell yeah.
of course, my friends, I hope you all had a wonderful time. And it's funny, 2 seasons and like a bunch of episodes are in. I still don't know how to end this show, but I'll let you know, my friends, that there's a lot of things going on, man, and y'all, a break is not bad. I'm
A
glad
break
that I was
ain't
able to
bad,
get.
dude.
I'm glad I was able to give myself a break to kind of reconvene with the show because I was able to do this really good episode with Mikey. So of course, you know, stay tuned. I don't have a guest for next week's episode. Next episode. So we'll see who I bring on, and I think that keeps the suspense really fun. So
Definitely.
without further ado, my friends, I'll catch you all next time.